Hello YouTube, and especially all you short heat pressers out there. This is another video in the laser alignment series that I've been putting out there, and this is pretty much being done at the request of several users. I've had publicly posted questions and private messages asking me, will the laser alignment system work with the clamshell setup? How does it work with the Fusion IQ? Or things like, I wish it worked with the Fusion IQ, and then I would set that up myself. Well, I can tell you it does work, and I'm going to demonstrate that here. In the previous videos, I used an A to Z swing away heat press, and I've since transitioned to the Fusion IQ. I do have reviews of both the A to Z swing away from Hotronix as well as the Fusion IQ coming up in the next week or two, so stay tuned if that is of interest to you. I want to address the question about the clamshell setup first. I don't have a clamshell model to demonstrate on. I also don't know anyone locally that has one, so I'm going to try to describe it for you. The laser alignment system should work with any heat press out there. And the reason being is you can adjust, you can pivot the lasers, as I've showed you in the previous videos, to run up and down the platen as you see fit. So in a clamshell styles, it has a single hinge at the back that opens like this. And a great place to learn more about clamshell style is on Big Brando. He's got a great channel, offers lots of information for heat pressers out there. And his style of heat press is similar to this one. It does have a pull-out tray, and it is a clamshell style at the back, whereas this one has a pull-out style, which I'll demonstrate in a minute, and the top is a swing away, very similar to the A to Z. So the clamshell lighting question is answered in this format. All you need to do is set the post. Again, watch the other video. I show you how I made this and how I use it. Set this monitor stand post parallel or perpendicular, depending on how you're looking at it, to your platen on your clamshell, so that when it's open, you can just simply point the lasers back into the opening of the gator mouth, and you shouldn't have any issues at all with that. When it closes, when you don't need them, obviously they'll be striking the top of your platen, but when it's open, they should fall right in place. And I will show you a couple things on how to measure those at an angle, things to take into account in this video in just a second. On the Fusion IQ, if you have limited space working in the front side of it, so you don't typically use the pull-out option, and you do use the swing-away setup, which operates like this, that can be done the same format. Put this parallel to it on the non-swinging side and line it up much like I did in the video where I demonstrated it previously on the A to Z swing away. It's going to be the same philosophy, except this platen's just a little bit bigger. What I'm going to address now is the pull-out tray and how I've set it up. I've had no issues with it, and if you just take a couple of minutes to set yours up, you really shouldn't either. One of the benefits to this Fusion IQ is that it's a very, very heavy press, somewhere in the 180, 190 pound range. Because it's super stable, and everything's really kind of higher key on it, I've had no issues with alignment of the tray. And what I mean is I pull the tray all the way out to its max limits and then plug in my USB power brick. And the lasers, as you can see, will come on right here. Because of that, and this is what's important, because there's not a lot of wiggle, if I pull it out to the max, I don't have to overstrain it or anything. I know that this platen is going to be lined up at the same place every time I drop a shirt. Much the same way with A to Z or this, if you were to swing it away and the platen's all the way back, or if you have a system that is stable where the platen doesn't move, you need to make sure that wherever you're working doesn't constantly change arrangement, layout, or wiggle too much, because if your alignment is perfect, but then the next time your platen has shifted, obviously your laser grids will be a little bit off. So all I do in my format is I just make sure that the platen's all the way out. You can use the guide that I've linked. I'll go ahead and link it below here. It's linked in the other video. That is a 15 by 15 platen setup that is scaled to print on 13 by 19 inch paper. Simply download the PDF, print it 100% on 13 by 19, and then you'll have the alignment guides that you can use there. What I've done on this one is I'm basically just taking a T-square, and what I've done is the edges of the platen, even with this protective cover, are fairly straight. I just pull the T-square to the side and make sure that on a 16-inch platen, my center guide is hitting at 8 inches. And then I will do it this direction down the 8-inch line to make sure that the line is not pivoted too much. On the really low ends of the shirt, unless you're running a really large design, it's not too big of a problem. But again, tweaking it that very first time and getting these tightened down to align very well the first setup is going to help you later, because any tweaks that you need to make will be very subtle. The next thing that I do is I look at 3 inches down and 4 inches down. And basically that's my alignment for front, chest, center. 3 inches down from the collar, so I let the collar hang off of the lip of the front end here, and then 3 inches from that collar seam down is where I'll line up the top part of any type of chest, center chest pattern that I'm going to be doing. Then the second one at 4 inches down is what I use, same but flipped over for the back, lay the collar over the top, 4 inches down. These are maybe industry standards, I guess. These are what I like. So you just put the lasers wherever you want them. If you want them on a diagonal because you do something unique that way, feel free to do it. Sky's the limit with how you can orient these things. And then, of course, I've got one that's 4 inches over from the center, and that's where I do my left chest pocket, and I kind of move around from there depending on the size of the shirt. But these are the parameters that I use. Now, what I was suggesting with the lasers, as you can see, my platen from the front edge of the table out is probably about 10 inches beyond the front end of the table, which means the lasers are almost a full foot to 14 inches back relative to the front of this design. And so what's going to happen is these lasers are swung, these horizontal beams, let's say, the ones perpendicular to the center line, are shifted up. And because of that, anything nearer to the laser gets hit by the laser sooner than stuff that's further away. And why is that important? Well, for example, if I align up, for example, this 4-inch diagonal laser, and I just cover up the laser beam, you can see it being covered there. That's this particular beam. You can see it's at a very hard angle. The 4-inch laser beam, I measure from the edge of the T-square. So I want the beam itself to run and hit right on that 4-inch marker, which I'll try to show you from a top down maybe in a second. That's exactly where it hits. If I look at the top of the ruler, it's going to be 1/4 of an inch lower than the actual line is. So the line on the platen itself is at 4 inches. But if I look at the ruler, because it's raised, and the beam is coming at an angle, it's hitting this, let's just say it's 45 degrees. That 45-degree angle is enough to shift the laser by 1/4 of an inch. Now keep in mind, that is not anything to do with this particular setup. That's anytime you're going to align the laser. So if you're using the Hotronix system, that's great. I highly recommend that you get a T-square, or make sure that your alignments are hitting right at 3 inches coming off. So this beam should hit 3 inches here and on the opposite side, and the same with 4. And then once you've determined that, again, T-square across the edge to make sure the beam isn't pivoted to where it's 3 inches on this side, but not this side. So that's how I use it, guys. I pull this straight out. I make sure, now if I don't have it all the way out, my alignment's going to be off. So anytime your platen is movable, you need to make sure it's where you want to have it as a good start point. So the start point to me is simply all the way out. Lay the shirt down, do what I need to do, push it in, pre-press it, pull it back out. Again, all the way out. The laser alignments will be where I need them. Place my design, slide it back in, and press it. The only limitation with my particular setup, because I have a movable workstation, a movable Husky bench, I don't have a lot of room to work. If I had a full-on workbench, I might move this further away. If I had a wider table, or if I'm using the A to Z, move the A to Z more to the center and give myself more working room. So sometimes, I'll try to come around to the left side here and show you. If I'm working on the front end and I'm putting something this way and I want to kind of make sure that I'm measuring it here, again, a lot of people will fold a shirt in half, press the center crease, align that up, and then you don't have to worry about it. But if I'm doing something quick and I want to kind of feel for evenness, and I pull this down here, I have to make sure that I don't bump this. If I bump this, then I need to remeasure. That is for this particular setup. That is not necessarily something that you'll run into if you have more left to right working space. So really, that's it, guys. All you have to do, make sure your platen is in a consistent, stable measuring point, which for me in the Fusion IQ is pulling the platen all the way out. And then go ahead and drop your lines. And then before I start, or if I've done a lot of shirts, I might take a T-square really quick and make sure that I do it. And I get great results every time. I don't use the 4x4 with the laser system. I could. I got this specifically to do neck labels. So if I were to switch it out, let's do that real quick. When you're pulling this up, make sure you don't bump your laser system as well. You can hear how heavy that is on the floor. And now I have basically center on that if I need to it. I just eyeball it. Now keep in mind, this platen is sits a little bit lower than the original one. So you want to make sure that the line doesn't need to be adjusted. It looks like it's ever so slightly this way, because if I lift it up, to me that looks about center. But this platen does sit a little bit lower, so that's something to keep in mind. However, with any laser system, you're going to have to adjust your beams based on if your platen sits at a different height, if it's a different shape, that sort of thing. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you found it helpful and the information useful, especially if you're a Fusion IQ owner. If not, hopefully at least stirred your brains a little bit and helped you come up with creative solutions to any of the problems you may be experiencing with your heat press setup. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments section below. I do my best to get back to those as quickly as possible. If you do have any questions specifically regarding this build right here, these components, how I created it, how I angled it, all of that stuff, please, again, watch the video I have linked in the description below. I have a close-up look at all of this stuff, an explanation of how I did it and why I chose to go this way in another video that I hope you will find helpful. Again, in the coming days or weeks, I hope to have another video or two up explaining my thoughts and review on the Fusion IQ heat press, as well as the Hotronix A to Z swing away. So if you are considering either of those, stay tuned. I'd love to help answer some questions that some people have asked and make some comments about what I experienced with both units. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Until next time, have fun doing your crafts. I wish you all the success in your business. Until the next time, be safe and God bless.